Hi, everybody. It's Jay, and I'm back in the booth again for another live sneak peek preview reading for this week's audiobook release here on Say with Jay. I am really excited about this week's audiobook. It is the third book in Jessie Gussman's Coming Back to North Dakota Sweet Romance series, Cowboy Stealing My Heart. I'm especially excited for this one because this will be the first time that we've actually released the audiobook before the book releases. Okay, Cowboy Stealing My Heart is the story of Bellamy Levine. She's America's favorite actress, the highest paid actress in Hollywood, and she's just finished what is sure to be the hit romantic comedy of the summer with her co-star, who is now, unfortunately, her ex-husband, as they have just gone through a very acrimonious and very public divorce. The stress of making the movie and that divorce have caused her to want to leave Hollywood just to get away for a while and go somewhere and find herself. Well, there's no better place in the world than Sweetwater, North Dakota, and she decides to rent a vacation cabin from Rem and Elaine Martinez, who you probably know from some of our previous books. It's also the story of Calhoun Powers. Calhoun, who's made cameos, I think, in both of the other Coming Home books, works for his family's trucking company, but his first love is carpentry. And he's quite a good carpenter and not too bad an electrician and plumber, too. Rem and Elaine have hired him to both finish out all of the other cabins on their property around this lake and to do all of the renovations that are being demanded by this Hollywood star for her visit. Calhoun also has a very life-changing surprise awaiting him that I will not spoil at all. And this is, it's both a bit of a fish-out-of-water story, but it's very much an opposites attract romance. And I just can't wait for you guys to hear it and read it. It's wonderful. Now, you might be wondering, usually the way these previews work is I do some sort of intro and then tell you about the book, and then we either listen to the preview or I do a reading. But I skipped the intro part. Now, you might be thinking, oh, good, we're going to get away without having to hear that. Well, not so fast. Actually, Jessie and I had been talking, kind of jokingly, because, we've done everything from the silly to the serious and points in between. And kind of jokingly, we were saying, what do we do next? A cooking show? Jessie pointed out that in the story, in the original draft of the story, Bellamy, the actress, decides to cook dinner one night. Being an ultra-rich movie star who's used to being pampered, has not done much for herself for many years. And she's looking up, in the original draft, she's just looking up some videos on YouTube of how to cook just like a basic chicken dish. Jessie remembered a recipe that I had shared with her just in the course of our normal conversations months and months ago, of a chicken recipe that my son and now especially my daughter-in-law just absolutely love. And she said, why don't we write that recipe into the book, and then you can do, in your preview, you can show people how to make it. So, that's what I'm going to try to do here. In the book, it's called Jenna's Favorite Chicken, but credit where credit is due, this is not my original recipe. I found it on a great website called midgetmama.com. By the way, I'm going to put the link to the recipe in the website in the description of the video, so you don't have to remember that right now. But without further ado, here is how we make Jenna's favorite chicken, also known as keto bacon ranch crockpot chicken. So, first step, you're going to want to take your crockpot, spray it with some nonstick spray. Next, you're going to want to add your chicken. The original recipe, I think, calls for 2 pounds of chicken breasts. You can certainly do that. I prefer using this rotisserie chicken I get from Costco, but as you can see, or maybe you can't see, it's nearly 3 pounds. So my amounts that are going to follow are upscaled to adjust for that. So that might be different if you're referring to the original recipe. Okay, next, you're going to want to break your chicken pieces up. With the rotisserie chicken, that's if you're using the rotisserie chicken, and that's super easy to do. Next, we're going to take 1 cup of sour cream, 1 cup of whipped cream cheese. You can probably use block cream cheese, but I don't know the amount for that, and 3 tablespoons or 1.5 packets of ranch dressing spice. You're going to mix that very well and spread that over your chicken. Next, you're going to take bacon. Any type of bacon will do. Personally, I love this Applewood thick sliced bacon that I get from, you guessed it, Costco. You're going to fold slices in half and put that on top of the cream cheese mixture. Now, I will say this, the original recipe calls for 6 slices. That's nonsense. You put as much bacon as you can geometrically fit on the top in your crock pot. Trust me on that. With apologies to Ben Franklin, bacon is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. So, next, you put the lid on, cook that on high for 4 hours. Now, when that's done, we're going to cook some additional bacon. You're also going to want to shred the chicken. If you're using the rotisserie chicken, 2 forks will do it. Since it's basically in pieces anyway, you're basically wanting to mix the cream cheese mixture and the bacon that was on top, tear that up and get it all mixed together. But we're going to cook some additional bacon. Cook it however you like, whatever method you want. The key is that you're going to want it nice and crispy. Personally, I like using this shallow baking pan lined with parchment paper in the oven at 400 degrees for the thick sliced bacon, about 26 minutes or so. But the cleanup is minimal. It cooks nice and flat. But do that, and while that is cooking, you're going to want to add to the crock pot 2 cans of Rotel tomatoes, 1 cup of prepared ranch dressing, and 4 cups of shredded cheese. Again, whatever kind of cheese you've got is fine. I like this Colby blend that I got from, you can guess where. You're going to add that, give it a good stir, replace the lid, and let everything continue to heat up while your bacon is cooking. Now, once your bacon is finished, put it on some paper towels to let it drain and cool, then chop it roughly and add it to the chicken. Give it a stir. It is purely optional if you want to use the tiniest wooden spoon in the entire world. In fact, I don't recommend that method. But once it's nice and stirred, it's ready to serve. You can serve it plain with steamed vegetables. That's very, very keto-friendly if you're doing that kind of thing. My household, personally, I like it on a bed of rice with the steamed vegetables. It also heats up really great if any survives to the leftovers stage. And you can either eat it by itself, it's great on a bun, it's really great on a tortilla as a wrap. Heat some up, add some cherry tomatoes and some baby spinach or lettuce, wrap that sucker up, and it's a wonderful, wonderful lunch. Anyway, that is how you make Jenna's favorite chicken. If you try it, let us know in the comments how you like it. And now, thank you for putting up with my mediocre attempt at a cooking show. Let's get into our live reading for Cowboy Stealing My Heart. Hope you'll enjoy this sample, but come back this Friday for the world premiere of Cowboy Stealing My Heart right here on Say with Jay. The sports car missed his toe by an inch. Calhoun Powers jerked his head up from his phone. He should have been paying attention, but he'd been eager to let his brother know that he'd found the O-ring they needed at Sweetwater's hardware store, and they wouldn't need to order it in to finish the rebuild they were doing on a turbo. But it was Sweetwater. There was never any traffic. The traffic that they did have took it nice and slow through town. Not this sports car. Out-of-state plates. California. That explained everything. Calhoun's lips pursed as brake lights came on. Tires squealed, and the car stopped before the reverse lights came back on, and it backed up. He stood in front of his pickup, waiting for the driver to do whatever they were going to do before he hopped in and headed back to the garage. The car stopped in front of him. Dude probably wanted directions. The tinted window slowly went down, and from the angle he was looking at, he saw a long, slender leg. It wasn't a dude. He took a step back and lowered his head slightly, looking in the window to meet the eyes of the driver. Wasted effort, since she wore huge, dark sunglasses that took up most of her face. Long, golden blonde hair poured down her back and over both shoulders. There was something familiar. Calhoun's eyes lifted slightly from the woman, looking over her low-slung car at the movie theater that was directly across the street. Usually, they played movies that were several months old or even older. But the entire town had been abuzz, along with the rest of the country, about the brand-new romantic comedy that was set to release in the next week. The highest-paid actress in Hollywood was in it, and her leading man was the man that she had just had a $100 million divorce settlement with. Their chemistry on screen was supposed to be sizzling, even though they'd been fighting and barely speaking to one another off-screen. It was such a big deal that the owners of Sweetwater's movie theater had actually bitten the bullet, paid the high fees, and ordered the movie in, figuring that even a small theater like them would be able to make their money back on such a huge movie. The poster for that movie took up the entire front window. The actress on the poster was smiling coyly and had her finger wrapped around the tie of the actor standing across from her. The lady in the car wasn't smiling and didn't look coy, but there was something familiar about her, and Calhoun searched the poster for just another second before his eyes dropped back down to the woman in the car. "Can I help you, ma'am?" he drawled, putting a little more country in his words than was strictly necessary. He wasn't sure why, other than that he didn't want her to mistake him for anything other than what he was, which was a blue-collar dude who might be able to work on her car, but would never drive one as fancy as that. He could build her house, but he'd never live in it. That thought came to him since he had been renovating the vacation rentals for Rem and Elaine Martinez, one of them just for some big Hollywood hotshot. Maybe that was this lady. She didn't bother to lower her glasses, but she did manage to look down her nose at him when she said, "I'm looking for the Martinez vacation rentals. My GPS seems to have quit working." "It does that around here," he said, and there was no sympathy in his voice. Hard to dredge up any feeling of compassion when she obviously had everything she could ever want at her fingertips. He ought to know, since he'd spent the last month turning one of Rem's rustic cabins into the lap of luxury. For him, anyway, since it included a jetted hot tub, a massive large-screen TV, skylights, stainless steel appliances, wall-to-wall tile in the bathroom and kitchen, as well as voice-activated lighting and heating. Each request had seemed more ridiculous than the last, as they came in one by one, almost as though the woman were changing her mind, needing more and more in order for her to retreat to the country. "Well?" the woman in front of him said, irritation in her tone. "Well, what?" he asked, wondering if she thought that he was going to somehow be able to fix her GPS. He wasn't a magician. "Can you give me directions to Martinez Vacation Rentals, or should I ask someone a little higher on the evolutionary ladder?" He grunted, not because he needed to make a noise, but because he clamped his teeth over the yes that wanted to come out. Just because this woman rubbed him the wrong way didn't mean he needed to be rude. He forced a pleasant, if small, smile on his face. "Keep going straight out of town. Just follow this road for about 30 miles. There'll be a right-hand turn and a little wooden sign with white lettering and an arrow. The name of the road is Convenient Marriage, and you'll just follow that back until you see the rentals." He nodded his head in that direction and then figured he'd better add, "If you need to talk to Rem, you have to stop at the house, which isn't far off Convenient Marriage Lane on the left." The woman pursed her lips and somehow looked like she was smiling and holding her nose at the same time. "Thank you. Do I need to pay you?" He almost thought she was asking that question as an insult, but he supposed he wasn't sophisticated enough to be offended. He just shrugged and said, "No." He had no desire to continue a conversation with her, and even less to try to figure out what was offensive about what she had just said. She looked smug. She didn't look away, although her finger moved slightly, and the dark-tinted passenger window glass slowly closed. Calhoun didn't wait for it to shut the whole way before he straightened and took a step back, ready to get in his truck and pull out as soon as her car was no longer in his way. He didn't have to wait for long, as she took off quickly. The tires didn't squeal, but he figured that was just a miscalculation on her part. Hi, this is Jay, and thanks for listening. If you're ready for another great audiobook, here's one we think you might like. Or check out the playlist with all our latest releases. Don't forget to subscribe to Stay with Jay, give this video a thumbs up, and tell us what you liked in the comments.